Warhammer, just like the gaming industry itself, has had quite an up and down year. The gaming industry has been festooned with flop after flop after flop, but there's been some bright spots. Okay, Pal World, Helldivers 2 for, a couple of months on the AAA side, not so much. For as much as I love and talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as much as I possibly can, did it break any sales records? No. Do I think it's going to be getting some PC port news? Maybe by the end of the month, or at Jeff Keighley's big circle jerk? Yeah, potentially. We'll probably hear about that then. But I digress. Now on the Warhammer side of things, I know, Fem Stodies, rewriting of the lore in general, adding other non-binary characters, but there is some bright spots, and Space Marine 2 does appear to be said bright spot over the past week or so since its release. Oh boy, the game has been super popular. And like a lot of things this year, it has resonated extremely well with the people who are playing the game, but on the critic side of things, I'm seeing more 6s and 7s out there than you're likely to see at a middle of the week event at a nightclub. But that's another thing that has really fallen, as if it wasn't bad enough in 2024, but anybody's opinions when it comes to games journalists. I can't remember if I've just released that video or if that one's coming up about how we need to trust that games journalists when they're out there talking about some of the craziest stuff. That one could be off in the future, but regardless, nobody trusts them anymore. Okay, they become a laughing stock. All of the outlets that are left, in fact. So you have to go to your own trusted reviewers, which is totally fine. Independent is always going to be the most authentic, which is also what we're seeing here as well. So the Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 developer admits games at Embracer, so the Embracer group, who owns a vast majority of a sizable portion of just about all of those franchises that have been destroyed in recent years. Yeah, that's the group that's behind a lot of these decisions, okay? Yeah, it made him want to cry with their overblown attempts at messaging or imposing morals on gamers. Now, when it comes to Space Marine 2, yeah, it's not fallen victim to a lot of those trappings. That's why it's succeeding. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 developer and Saber Interactive CEO Matthew Karch recently revealed that he is not a fan of developers creating games that have an overblown attempt at messaging or imposing morals. Yeah, exactly. Show, don't tell. Because it's interesting, right? Because you can go ahead and you can tell a bunch of different stories that I might not necessarily line up with. I might not agree with. Hell, some of my recent videos in regards to George R.R. Martin as a person, how I think that he's a lazy fat piece of shit who should just go ahead and finish and secure his legacy. I really like what he writes. Hell, a lot of artists in entertainment I will vehemently disagree with. And if they want to explore interesting ideas and they do it in a thoughtful, thought-provoking way, I'm down with that. It's just when you put that messaging ahead of your story, that's when there starts to be some problems, and that's what we're seeing, and that's what's making this malaise in modern entertainment, and why it just all seems so disposable, because it's not out there to try and entertain the audience. It's not out there to try to tell a compelling story. It's out there to preach, plain and simple. But in a comment on a video of an Asmongold TV YouTube channel where Asmongold reacts to legendary drops, okay, Space Marine 2 is a reminder of what we lost, Karch made his opinion clear. He wrote, "Hey man, CEO of Saber here." Well, that's kind of cool. They reaches out via there. "I love your videos. We have signed the deal to make Space Marines 2. All I wanted was a throwback game. We had the change to work on something which, by its nature, was old school. I can't even comprehend many of the current games that we play these days. They are too complex and too much of an investment," he added. Next, he shared that he was inspired by Halo. "Oh, we worked on Halo back in the day." Oh, no, don't throw back to better times. God, man. You know how good things were back in the early 2000s, when Halo was first kicking up steam, and the PS2 was in full flight with all of their great JRPGs. The Lord of the Rings trilogy was coming out. 24 started on TV. Like, every single medium, I would argue, was at its zenith. And to be completely honest, we haven't really changed all that much. To just go back, just cast your mind. Also think that next year it's going to be 10 years removed from 2015. And just go and see, catch clips from that point in time. How much have we really changed in the past 10 years? How much have we really changed all that much since 2005, 20 years back? Not that much, I'd argue. Fashion? Not all that much. Architecture? None whatsoever. Music? It's all just been in this kind of holding pattern, because what's really the discernible difference between Eurobeat, dubstep, mumble rap, auto-tune? Like, it's all just the same crap, okay? But that's, again, another topic for another time, but it does bleed over enough to make mention of it. But we worked on Halo back in the day, and that game could be distilled down to the simplest of shooting loops. Yeah, they got it right to begin with, because what's the story about Super Mario 64, where Nintendo, they spent a couple of years just simply making the movement of Mario fun, and then they built the rest of the game on the back of that. Watch some of those old Bungie vid docs back when Bungie was, actual Bungie and not whatever in the blue hell they are right now. They redefined what it was to be an FPS, at least on consoles, okay? And it was hard work behind that, and there was people willing to do that hard work, but this is what we wanted to recapture. Okay, when I hear somebody talk about this stuff, and that's also the same reason why I like to trumpet Final Fantasy VII Rebirth whenever I have the opportunity, because Naoki Hamaguchi, the director, he always talks about, how much he loves the game that was made, how much passion was put into it, how they toiled over making every aspect of that the best that they possibly can, how he had personal investment in Junon and he flushed that out as best as possible. And Junon, it's really tough for me to pick my favorite area in there. The diversity of Junon in the best possible way. I'm using that, of course. It really does scream and have all of the hallmarks of a lot of attention and care being put into it. And then, of course, because Nojima loves those characters and he finally got the opportunity to go back, revisit them, and flesh them out. And that's why, all of their interactions seems so authentic, unlike, there's so many other big budget games that are out there. But I could talk about that game for hours and hours on end, and I intend to by the end of the year. But that's what this reminds me of. Listen, man, we wanted to go back and we wanted to make it a really fun and compelling game to play. Guess what? They did that, and their sales are being rewarded because of it. Karch then shared his hope that Space Marines 2 and Black Myth Wukong, another game that was crafted with love and attention, care and dedication, when the activists were knocking at the door, they decided to, send them on their way and expose their grift. And what happened to them? Well, Black Myth Wukong is going to be the biggest game of the year, hands down. And right now, it's one of the biggest games of all time, which is crazy to think about. Are the start of the revival in the video games industry to get back to fun and immersion, he wrote. I hope that games like Space Marine 2 and Wukong are the start of a reversion to a time when games were simply about fun and immersion. Finally, he lamented the state of the industry during a brief time as a chief operating officer at Embracer Group. I spent some time as COO at Embracer, and I saw games there that made me want to cry with their overblown attempts at messaging or imposing morals on gamers. We just want to do some glory kills and get the heart rate up a little. Now, for me, that's what games should be about, he concluded. It appears that he accomplished that with Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, despite Warhammer's parent company, Games Workshop, embracing overblown messaging and attempting to impose, morals on gamers. The game has a user score of 80 on Metacritic for 440 reviews, 341 positive reviews across PC, PS5, Xbox, 48 mixed reviews, and 51 negative reviews. I think PC Gamer gave it like a 6 or something like that, and IGN, I don't even know what they're doing right now. Do they got their ankles grabbed and their butt cheeks spread open for Dragon Age Origins coming out at the end of October? Ugh, what a disaster that thing looks like it's going to be, but I'll be talking about that in the next couple of days. But as of right now, I see the success of Space Marines 2, and it's very positive that it's getting on Steam, and that's, when it comes to review aggregators, generally seems like a pretty positive and fortuitous way to go ahead and check the pulse of the actual players that are out there. Outside of the early days of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, it's been very reliable. Yes, 53,000 positive reviews, which is crazy to think. Yes, this game feels like it was made in the mid-2000s, early 2010s, but like in a good way. Yeah, exactly. When they prioritized gameplay over messaging, when they prioritized fun over modern-day values. So if developers are going to be learning anything from 2024, it's very simple to see. If you're passionate about the game that you're developing, you're going to be rewarded. Look at the success of Black Myth Wukong, Palworld, Helldivers 2. Actually, Helldivers 2 is probably going to serve as the best example throughout 2024. When you're listening to your community, when you're keeping the message out of your game, you're being well rewarded. When you're being exposed as liars, selling out your community, then things start to drop off. When you let your woke community managers start to shape the narrative, then there's going to be a backlash. Then there's going to be a fall off. So yeah, man, the good word of mouth, it's only going to continue to spread. And heading into this, very busy holiday season where all of the big budget games are going to be released, I look on the horizon and I don't see a lot of victories out there. Okay, I don't see a bunch of games that could offset the failure that is Concord, that could recoup any of the losses for Warner Brothers. But I can see a space for people who are maybe, just waiting for an opportunity, trying to get some time off to play Black Myth Wukong, engaging with that game, coming back to Space Marine 2, or just simply going back to an earlier time, those late 2000s, early 2010s, and re-engaging with some of the classics, because that's where we're at this point in time. Modern entertainment sucks in general, but there's specific examples that give you a little bit of hope that maybe not all is lost. Just most of it. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.